Hello! So today I'm going to be reviewing Little by Edward Carey. Now this is the first thing I have ever read by Edward Carey, but after doing some googling I have found out that at the time of this review he has written 7 other books. He is also a playwright, an illustrator and professor in Texas, although he originates from Norfolk in the UK. Now before we get into the meat of this review, I wanted to highlight that this novel is littered with these wonderful sketches and illustrations all the way through it. Now sometimes this device in novels can seem a little bit gimmicky. Sometimes it works, but in the case of this book, it matches with it perfectly. I mean, look at this beautiful hardback edition that I have, which I believe is a re-release. It is just stunning. In fact, the illustrations suit the tone and style of this book so well that I actually feel like if you listen to this on audiobook, the experience would be no way near as good. The themes of this novel are gender, art, ambition, and belonging, but also a little bit of storytelling and how we tell stories. Little is a historical fiction novel that follows the life of Marie, nicknamed Little due to her size. Marie went on to become Madame Tussauds, the famous wax sculptor, who went on to open the world-famous wax museum, which is obviously called Madame Tussauds. I imagine that's pretty well-known knowledge across the world, but you never know, so if you don't, yes, Madame Tussauds, lots of waxworks of famous people throughout history. Set in the late 18th century to early 19th century, this novel spans Marie's humble beginnings in Switzerland, all the way to her becoming a successful businesswoman in France. The main body of the novel is set during a turbulent time in European history, and Edward Carey does an excellent job of capturing the zeitgeist of the time. The French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon all have a very significant impact on Marie's life. Carey's portrayal of the political, the social, the cultural aspects at that time are utterly compelling, and he does really well to bring together the contradictions and tensions of that era whilst never losing focus of Marie's story. The book is just really rich in historical detail all the way through. Side note, I know very little, and I mean very little, about late 18th century France, so I have no idea if the details and the facts within this novel are accurate, but it feels like from reading it, the research was extensive, which leads me to believe that most of it is in fact true. Marie, Little, is orphaned very early on in the book to a couple of tragedies that happened to her mum and her dad. She then finds herself in the care of a Dr. Curtius. Now, Dr. Curtius creates wax sculptures for medical purposes, and she soon finds herself becoming his apprentice. While Marie is undoubtedly the star of this novel, there is also a large cast of very eccentric side characters who I enjoyed immensely. So as mentioned, we have Dr. Curtius, her mentor, her father figure, who teaches her the way of sculpting wax. We also have Uncle Rubens, her wax supplier, and Edmund, who is her first love. And these relationships Marie has, they have their highs and their lows, but they all add nuance and depth to Marie's story. However, the most compelling character out of them all is her sort of nemesis, her rival, Widow Rose. Widow Rose is a fashion designer who lives in Paris and initially helps Dr. Curtius and Marie by providing them accommodation as they are fleeing Switzerland. But the Widow Rose sees the potential in what Dr. Curtius is doing with his wax sculptures, the ability to make some money from it. And very quickly she turns into the villain and she forces Marie into becoming her servant, helping out around the textile shop, helping out with Dr. Curtius, but never actually giving her any privileges. She batters her down to the point where Marie almost has to try and accept the fact that she's never going to be paid and that she is just a servant. I hated, and I mean hated, the Widow Rose, and I was a little worried because for a long stretch of the book I thought she was just going to be the out and out villain. There was nothing to her but nastiness. However, as the novel built, her character got a little bit more complex, and we did eventually start to see a softer side. I mean, I still hated her all the way through, but thankfully her complexities do advance and she isn't just an out-and-out villain. And another key plot point it seems crucial to mention is when Marie ends up working for one of the young royals, Elizabeth, in Versailles. It helps highlight the idea of class and the hierarchy of France at that time and adds to the tensions that are building and everything that unfolds. Now I'm going to leave that there because I don't want to ruin or spoil too much of the plot or what happens to Little, because that's kind of the magic, isn't it? It's part of the fun. So what did I like And what didn't I like? What I liked? Well, one of the most striking things about this novel is Edward Carey's writing style. He employs a very lyrical prose and the language is rich and dense. It's filled with metaphors and similes that really bring the story to life. Carey seems to have this knack for creating vivid descriptions of people and places that just really brings it all to life. His attention to detail is actually really impressive, and the end result is a book that is very atmospheric and also utterly immersive. The next thing I liked is the characters. Even the ones I hated. They were all really eccentric, they suited the time, they suited the place. They were all well-rounded, motivations were always clear all the way throughout. Yeah, I just engaged and connected with every single character in this one. And I really liked the story. Now, although the plot is quite simple, it kind of perfectly matches Little as a character. At first, you think she's a simple person, but the more you go on, the more this story progressed, the more layered it became in a really gentle, heartfelt way. And the more I progressed through it, the more I realised that this book was speaking about so much more than just Little as a character. It was really talking to me about life in general, and ambition, and acceptance, and belonging. And I loved it for it. And the final thing I liked, but I won't say liked, I'm going to say loved, was the illustrations. I thought the illustrations in this were just stunning. I just loved them. I've never seen this device work so well in a novel before. I've read many novels where illustrations have been included, and sometimes it really, really works. But sometimes it can be a little jarring with the story being told, or sometimes take me out of what I'm trying to experience in my mind's eye. But with this one, it just matched it beautifully. Now, I would suggest if you're just an audiobook reader that you will be missing out if you listen to this and you don't read it in physical form. Those illustrations, they add something to it. So what didn't I like? Only one thing, just one small little thing. The ending felt rushed. Now, I don't want to go into too many details because I do not want to spoil things for you, but the end section covers a vast amount of time with loads of things that had happened that I was dying to find out about. I was like, this could be a whole nother book in and of itself. This book could have been double the length. I would have stuck with it. But yeah, it just sort of cuts off a bit short, and it left me, I'm not going to lie, just a little bit flat. When I pondered the book after finishing it and I thought about it, everything that was great about it and I loved soon came back to me. But there was this tiny little thing that just left me feeling a little bit like quite not complete with it. So that's my one dislike. I felt the ending just felt a little bit rushed. And there you go. That is my review of Little by Edward Carey. I will, without a doubt, be reading more of his stuff at some point. I am going to give this 4.5 stars out of 5. If the ending had been a little bit more fleshed out, it would have been a 5-star without a doubt, and probably, even though it's quite early in the year, made my kind of top books of the year. I kind of fell a little bit in love with this one. It's a simple story, beautifully told, wonderful prose, excellent illustrations. I don't know. I can imagine one day this being turned into a real beautiful indie animated film. You know, it gives me that kind of vibe. But anyway, have you read this book? What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the old comments below. And if you're new here and you've enjoyed this in any way whatsoever, hit the old subscribe. That'd be great. Or a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And I will see you all on the next one. Thanks for watching.